Hi Year 12s, Miss Brooks here. Quick unpacking. Stories We Tell is a story of a family and what holds it together. Discuss. Okay, so I would be thinking about, well, who might maybe holds it together and what, like, are we talking about feeling, emotion, etc. So I would start with the idea that I think it's Diane that really holds the family together. She is a mother, a wife, busy actress. Sorry, busy, this should be casting agent, and aspiring and enthusiastic actress. And I think what I'd be looking at is, because I've said that before, but I think what you need to be looking at here is the ways in which you think that she is central to the family and appears to be the one that is the glue, basically, that holds them all together. So you can look at her central role when she's in the kitchen, when she's in the parties, when she is anytime she's on a screen, she basically occupies really the center of it. And I think that's reiterating that role, is that she is the glue that holds all of the Pollys, in one. They are the person to whom she flocks. And I think Harry makes some quote about her being like a light that you just kind of wanted to bathe in. If I can find it, I'll add it on here. Now, I'm just having a look here because I had a different idea when I just read it then than what I planned about an hour ago when I typed this up. But you might consider her loss too as a point of disintegration for the family. So you might look at when she dies and the kids note that kind of Michael fell apart and he really struggled to be a parent for a while there and gave the responsibility over to Sarah, who was just 11 years old. And he became withdrawn. He was obsessively playing solitaire and things like that. And you can look at the recreated footage. You need to have a couple of quotes from I think Anne Tate and possibly who's the other one? The other woman that appears right about that time, and she explains that he withdrew and became kind of like inwards, a bit morose and a bit depressed, and he couldn't deal with her, and her passing suggests that it made it difficult for them to stay together in the immediate aftermath of her death. And I don't think it's that they fell apart. I think it's that he struggled to rise to the role that she had once occupied. But then you might talk about the renewing of that relationship between Michael and Sarah, and he said we'd never been as close as we had been in that time, and that he appreciated that. And I think that he makes comment about the fact that before that Diane had been around for all the other children, so they had naturally flocked to her as the more kind of vivacious, fun-loving, good-time Charlie, best person they'd ever known. She was that character, so they were naturally drawn to her, whereas when it's him and Sarah, they form a relationship from that. So that seems to hold them together, almost their loss and the unity that comes with them being the final two at home really, really kind of brings them together. And you could talk about then the potential for the secret of the revelation of her secrets, and that is her affair with Harry, and the fact that Sarah's biological father is Harry and not Michael, has the potential to break her family apart. And it's something that both Sarah and her siblings keep from Michael for a very long time, and it's only when she's forced to tell him, and you could look at that footage of her being told by the journalist when she's in her costume for the film about the kind of caveman experience, and I forget the exact word, but I'll add that in here. Sorry, it's late. And you could talk about the juxtaposition of that kind of her horrified sense that the people around her didn't care that she was so upset at the revelation of this truth, and how she's kind of breaking apart in public, with the kind of humor, realizing that she actually had all her stage makeup and it was kind of the ridiculousness of the situation. And I think Sarah puts that in almost as a little bit of a light-hearted to break up the tension of this moment, because it's really quite a stressful point in her life, knowing that she's going to have to tell Michael. about the betrayal. And then you can look at the recreation of that meeting, her telling him, and his narration about it, because the voiceover then is him explaining the situation, and then they're obviously acting it out in the moment. And he says, in that moment you hadn't hugged me kind of that tightly or that closely in years. And I think even the coming out of that truth ends up being a renewing force. Despite her reservations about telling him, it becomes a renewing force. And finally, I'll keep this idea. I would say that the revelation of the secret also forces reflection, which has the capacity then to make people reevaluate their lives, and it can be a destructive or a renewing force. And I would look at, we'll talk about the idea of the mirrors being the way that this moment or this revelation, it's the mirrors through which you can see what you really look like. And Joanna realizes that all three of the daughters, Sarah, Joanna, and Susie, all subsequently divorced their husbands, and you've got that image of their happy marriages. I think it's photos and footage from there, and the voiceover, you've got Joanna saying that all three got divorced. So this kind of shattering of those relationships or that reality because of this secret and the impact that it has. And it's not necessarily to say that it's the direct cause, but I think the revelation of the secret and her infidelity makes people reevaluate their own relationships. In contrast, Mark works to solidify his relationship, while John kind of finds a parallel. He doesn't like being regulated, much in the same way that Diane didn't like to be regulated. And I think he finds a bit of a kinship with his mother in this moment. But in the end, really, Michael urges his readers, the people reading his narrative, which he's sending to his family, and thus Sarah's audience, because it's being played in the film, not to judge Diane for her actions, instead to feel empathy for her sense of repression and the deprivation Harry has undoubtedly experienced, given the loss of not only Diane, but of a long relationship with Sarah. So what I mean by that is the way Diane felt repressed because of the social situation, and also because of what she wanted out of her marriage that she wasn't getting. And Harry never got to experience Sarah growing up, and he lost Diane as well, obviously, in terms of the initial relationship, but then she passed on too, and he really only had her for a fleeting moment, and I think that brings Michael's sadness upon reflection. It is these reflections and the also overarching sense of love. So despite all this, they still love her, and you can tell that by that demon host scene where the music's playing and they're all still kind of devastated and sad, and it just splices between each of them. No sound within the interview, just the silence of their reaction with the overlaying of that film, the music track of Demon Host's Timber Timber, which is really kind of a mournful song about a loss. Okay, and they continue to feel for the matriarch, that is the female leader that held their family together. And it continues, even in their kind of loss, that continues to bind them together in the present. So it is a story of family and the ramifications of secrets on a family, but it is also about how those secrets can either shatter us or bring us closer together. And it seems in the end that it held them together. The love that they felt held them together despite the secrets, I would argue. Okay, that's it for this one. Thank you.